I'd like to thank you all for being here. I will run through things as we are behind schedule. By way of a short introduction, my name is Azadeh Zabeti. I'm an international human rights lawyer as well as a human rights and women's rights activist with a particular expertise on Iran and, of course, the wider Middle East. The IRGC, who we will come to speak about in a little while, and I'm sure our speakers will touch upon, have used batons, steel rods, tear gas and live ammunition on unarmed civilians, killing protesters, including women, children, minors. There have also been harrowing accounts of sexual violence against women, including but not limited to rape and sodomy. The modus operandi of the Iranian regime, ladies and gentlemen, has always been savagery and brutality. The modus operandi has not changed. The modus operandi will not change because the Iranian regime is incapable of change. As I said, women have always been at the forefront of the movement for change, not only in this uprising and revolution, but previously in the revolutions that we've had prior to this one in 2019, 2017, notably 2009, 1999, and so on and so forth. My point in raising this is the fact that for over 100 years, Iran's history has been littered with men and women who have risked their lives and sacrificed their lives in order for the democratic aspirations of our countrymen and women to finally be realized. The demands of Iranian women and our people is very simple, and that is that they have the inalienable right, that is a right of all men and women around the world, to live in a free, a democratic, and a secular republic. And in my opinion, it would be an enormous disservice to Iranian women if this movement for change and this revolution was solely termed in terms of the hijab and mandatory veiling and the dress code. Make no mistake, this revolution is about one thing and one thing only, and that is, of course, regime change in its entirety by the Iranian people and for the Iranian people. Our organization has carried out analysis on the chants and the graffiti and the slogans that we're seeing from inside of Iran on social media and that's coming to us. One of the most popular chants of this revolution and others has been death to the oppressor, be it the Shah or our current ruler. This, of course, is a reference to the dictatorial rule of the Shah, an individual who was overthrown rightly by the Iranian people in 1979. Now, what we are seeing are the children and the grandchildren of those individuals who took up the right to overthrow the dictator, now sacrificing their lives in order to rid Iran and the wider world of our current dictator, the misogynistic regime of the mullahs. One of the slogans for this revolution, and it's one that you will know very well, this revolution is very much being called a woman's revolution, and the slogan for this revolution is women, life, freedom. And therefore, in my personal opinion, it's an insult to the Iranian people and the immense sacrifices that have been made by men and women in particular, to suggest that they are sacrificing their lives in order to be led by an unelected male to lead over them simply by virtue of his DNA. I will cut what I want to say short, but I just want to say that we are making history. There is history in the making. The Iranian people are on the march to freedom. This is, of course, a reference to Nelson Mandela, who bravely, with his people, fought against the apartheid regime in South Africa. He described their walk to freedom as just that. And we, the Iranian people, are on the path to our freedom. That freedom is in sight, and I thank you for marching with us and for being on this journey with us. Without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce, perhaps you could move the microphone, Mr. Jim Shannon.
Yeah, okay. It's a real pleasure to follow you, and thank you for that there as well. I apologise for my life just seems to be rushed from one place to another, so apologies. I wanted to be here because I've always supported the rights of those who I suppose the freedom fighters in Iran, and especially ladies and girls in particular, but also those of other religious persuasions as well. I chair the APPG and freedom of religious belief. For me, religious expression is so important. So I just want to make a couple of quick comments if I can. I don't doubt for one second that across the whole of the world, and in Iran in particular, the headlines of the nationwide uprising is one that we all support, and I want to add my support for that as well. I think the uprising has made it very vividly and very clear that the Iranian people overwhelmingly reject the ruling regime in its entirety. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind about that. The regime as is must be removed. So when it comes to it's more than a protest, it's a revolution. The regime has responded with its signature barbarity and violence. Some 750 protesters have been killed, some 60 children. I think that underlines the number of people who are involved and the age groups that they range from as well. Some 35,000 have been detained. We've had some hangings as well, and those have been hard to watch when people are only fighting for the freedom, the liberty and the democracy that we have here, that we enjoy in this country. Many have been tortured, many have been executed. The regime needs to be held and accountable for the serial mass murder. It also has killed some 1,500 protesters in 1988, and we've said them many times about that as well. There's been 30,000 political prisoners killed at that time. International experts believe that the 1988 massacre is classified as a genocide, and I think sometimes we in this country and across the world are slow to recognise genocide as it is, and we should be making it our support more apparent. Also, the perpetrators who continue to hold senior posts in Iran and elsewhere need to be accountable and know that they will be accountable for their crimes against humanity. The uprising is still continuing with fervour and commitment, and the regime has also had no serious long-term solutions for a myriad of socio-economic crises as well. Balance of power, I believe, has clearly shifted in favour of the Iranian people. That's my perception outside looking in. I think it's one of many of us hold as well. The opposition, and chief amongst them has been my friends in the National Council of Resistance of Iran, very much to the forefront, very much to flying the flag, so to speak, for the viable alternative after the regime's downfall will take place. Western governments in London should acknowledge this shift, and I think it's time for them to recognise that as well, and that the Iranian people have a right to defend themselves and to overthrow the clerical regime. So far UK's response and policy has been on par with realities on the ground in Iran, but I do feel that we must tighten the squeeze on those in control in Iran at this moment in time. As a practical step, the UK should scrap negotiations with the tyrannical rulers and begin a long due dialogue with the Iranian people. Yeah, don't talk to the government, if only it was possible. Talk to the people who are leading the revolution, who are trying to overthrow the government in favour of democracy, of liberty and of freedom. The Iranian people deserve immediate global solidarity and real meaningful action. Tomorrow, I believe, is too late. Every minute that the democracy isn't realised is something that we must be very aware of. So the UK must abandon the old policy of appeasement and act decisively by standing on the right side of history. The NCRI's 10-point plan, I believe, provides a respectable and reliable alternative. So I would fully support that. I've said it before when other speeches I've had here, and I reiterate that again. UK should act immediately to stop execution of protesters in Iran, demand the release of detained protesters. UK should also partner with international actors to make sure that the fact-finding mission of the UN Human Rights Council is allowed to visit Iran and inspect the Iranian prisons, where they can meet with and interview detainees and political prisoners as soon as possible. Western governments must also proscribe the IRGC. Well, that couldn't come quick enough. You know, their crimes against the people of Iran, their brothers and sisters in Iran, I think is something we must take action against very, very quickly. And with that in mind, I apologise for everyone for having to leave so quickly, but I wanted to add my support. I wanted to be here to do that. I want you to know it. I want the people of Iran to know it, and we're here to support their struggle for freedom, for liberty and for democracy. And we in this country, and myself as a parliamentarian, will not stop until that happens. Thank you.
So I'm a Member of Parliament for Halifax, but I'm also the Shadow Minister for National Security. And so the disclosure in the Director General of MI5's annual threat assessment that they've intervened in attempted kidnap or assassination plots directed at Iranian heritage British residents since January of last year is really quite staggering. That for anybody who thinks that this is something taking part in a country that's a long way from the UK, the reality is some of the very worst elements of that Iranian regime are playing out, are active on the streets of our country as well, just to make that absolutely crystal clear to anybody that didn't understand why we've got a responsibility and an obligation to stand with those brave, incredibly brave, it's a word that keeps continuing to be used, protesters through to delivering regime change in Iran. And there was something for me that I tweeted just last week. There was a news story of a husband who had received an 8-year prison sentence for decapitating his 17-year-old wife. He'd received an 8-year sentence for murdering in the worst possible ways his very young woman, wife, whereas the death sentences that are being handed out to those who dare speak out against the regime, to me, just absolutely spoke to the hypocrisy and the corruption that goes to the heart of that regime and the misogyny that underpins it. And so I've been very keen to try and make sure that from both a sort of front bench perspective, we're doing all that we can to bring that pressure to bear on the regime in Iran to keep people safe here and drive that influence out of our country and be a voice for those women who are having to live with that misogyny and that hypocrisy every day.
Thank you.